afternoon. You're watching the English newscast here on Future Television. I'm Yumna Naufal, and these are today's headlines. At least 9 people killed in an open fire attack at a U.S. consulate building in Turkey, and another 3 during an attack on a police station. The Syrian army seizes a large number of weapons and internal documents from battles with the Islamic State. And 3 policemen wounded during a bomb explosion near a Cairo courthouse in Egypt. Good afternoon to all our viewers. We begin today with 2 different attacks in Istanbul. Only hours after a bomb took place on a police station, 2 assailants opened fire at the U.S. consulate building. They engaged in a gunfight with security personnel. At least 9 people were killed in the blast at the police station in Sultan Beyli district, and no consulate staff members had been hurt. One of the 2 assailants of the attack at the consulate, a female who was wounded during the shootout with police, was later captured in an apartment nearby, and police are still searching for a second suspect who is also a female. Police shouted multiple times for one of the women to drop her bag, to which she responded, "I will not surrender." 2 suspected police station attackers and a police officer were killed in an exchange of fire at another point of the city later in the morning. General Security Chief General Ibrahim Abbas has revealed that an initiative to raise the retirement age of senior army officers for 3 years aimed at ending a growing political crisis has yet to be stopped. Ibrahim told us Safir Daily published that his contacts with all the Lebanese factions are ongoing. The head of General Security also stressed that his initiative is well studied, denying that it would put financial pressure on the Treasury by keeping top officers in their posts. No one has the right to express his viewpoint on something which he does not know. Ibrahim said this about his critics, and Tine sources said that Speaker Nabih Berri does not mind discussing the amendment of the defense law to raise the retirement age of the top military brass. The head of the Future Movement Parliament bloc, Fouad Sanyura, is saying that by raising the military retirement age, Free Patriotic Movement leader Michel Aoun would be destroying the Lebanese army. He says, "I know that this is madness, but I did not think for a moment that they would get beyond this." Sanyura said this in remarks published by As-Safir. The Future bloc has stood firm against a draft law to raise the retirement ages of army officers, arguing that such a move would threaten the hierarchy within the military. The proposed deal would raise the Army commander's retirement age from 60 to 63, a move that would keep Army Commander Jean Ahouaje, who was supposed to retire on September 23rd, in his post for 1 more year. It would also raise the retirement ages of brigadier generals by 2. And the Prime Minister Tamam Salam, or sources closest to him, are expressing confidence that there is a consensus to be reached in order to confront Free Patriotic Movement leader MP Michel Aoun's call for street demonstrations against the military extensions. Each day has its own events, Salam said, and he is not alone responsible for confrontation. Aoun called on Saturday on his supporters to get ready to stage demonstrations after Defense Minister Samir Muqbil issued decrees to extend the terms of the military commander, the Chief of Staff, and the head of the Higher Defense Council. Aoun, of course, rejects the extensions because he wants to bring his son-in-law, Brigadier General Shamil Rukuz, who is the Commander Regiment Chief, as Army Chief. The Prime Minister is not changing his plans over Aoun's warnings, the sources stated in remarks to several newspapers. God, The Syrian army has seized a large number of weapons and internal documents from the Islamic State during battles in the northeastern province of Hasaka in July. The Syrian army and Kurdish fighters dislodged ISIS from Hasaka city and suburbs in the province on August 1st after a month-long battle. A commander of the Syrian army's Ghawairan operation, Nizar Khuttur, said ISIS carried out 45 large-scale bomb attacks in Hasaka city in July alone. The seized documents show that ISIS has a strict structure with different approval levels for militants' applications to go to war. A form for arrangement of standing guards showed that the concerned 10 militants were from 7 different countries. A major in the Syrian army said the militants use a medicine to numb their nerves and allow them to fight war for longer periods without sensing pain from wounds. He described their behavior as beast-like. Coming up next, Michael Brown commemorations in Ferguson turn violent as gunshots erupt. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching the 4:20 o'clock news here on Future Television. Yemeni loyalist forces recaptured a southern provincial capital from Houthi rebels and their allies, as well as a coastal town, as they pressed and advanced from the second city of Aden. Zinjibar, the capital of Abyan province, has been held by the troops of the renegade 15th Brigade, which remains loyal to ousted strongman Ali Abdullah Saleh, who is allied with the Houthi rebels. Troops entered Zinjibar some 50 kilometers east of Aden after overrunning the brigade's barracks with support from Saudi-led coalition airstrikes. Now, the military sources said they deployed tanks to secure the city and then also retook the coastal town of Sha'ra with little resistance from rebel forces. At least 19 people were killed and 163 wounded Saturday and Sunday in and around Zinjibar, according to Aden Health Chief Al-Khadr Laswar. 3 policemen wounded when a bomb exploded under a traffic entry post near a Cairo courthouse, in the latest in a series of attacks to hit the Egyptian capital. Bomb disposal experts defused a second device they found inside a black bag while searching the areas following the blast. Now, no one has claimed immediate responsibility for the explosion, which occurred in the affluent northeastern Heliopolis district. A 2-year-old insurgency centered on the Sinai Peninsula, which has pledged allegiance to the militant ISIS movement and remains the most active group. It has also killed hundreds of soldiers and police since the army ousted President Mohamed Morsi after mass protests against his rule in 2013. Now, while the insurgency is concentrated in the peninsula, lying between Israel, Gaza, and the Suez Canal, violence has also hit the capital. Egypt's top public prosecutor was killed by a car bomb attack on his convoy in late June, and the most senior state official to die at the hands of militants in 2 years. The final hearing for Washington Post reporter Jason Rezaian, who was detained in Iran more than a year ago and charged with espionage, closed in Tehran. His mother, Mary Rezaian, and wife, Yegana Salehi, went to the court but were not allowed in. Rezaian, who has American and Iranian citizenship, is being tried by a revolutionary court which hears sensitive cases, including those related to national security.
He is paying the price of the suspicion, the animosity, and the paranoia between the two countries for more than 37 years. Iran's judiciary claims to be independent, but this has all been behind closed doors, and I have no idea what has happened. I can tell you that Jason's rights as an Iranian citizen have not been fulfilled because he was kept in prison more than 1 year, and many times his trial was delayed. I'm challenging those people who arrested him and are trying him to show the evidence that they are using, accusing him of espionage. I want them to publish that information, and I want to make public the tapes from the trial so that the Iranian people and the American people can see if Jason really did harm to Iran or not. And Jason was doing the work that you are all doing, the work of journalists. He was getting the same information that Iranian citizens get because he was a member of the Foreign Press Corps, and he would get information from television and news and radio. So Jason did not pass any special security or military information. He's very tired. He's very isolated. They don't have him with other people that he can speak with the same languages, English, Farsi, and so he is very isolated.
A car bomb exploded near the entrance to Kabul airport, killing at least 4 and wounding 17 days after a series of suicide attacks in the Afghani capital killed dozens and wounded hundreds of others. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack in a crowded area outside the airport checkpoint, but a security official said it appeared to be aimed at 2 armored cars, although it was not clear who was in the vehicles. The tangled flaming wreckage of one of the cars lay on its side as dozens of firefighters and police gathered. 4 civilians were killed and 17 people wounded, including a woman and a child. The injured were taken to the Wazir Akbar Khan Hospital for treatment. Kabul, of course, is already on high alert following last week's attacks, which killed at least 50 civilians and security forces personnel in the worst violence in the capital in years. Speaking of violence, we move to the United States, where a man opened fire on police in Ferguson, Missouri. He has been gravely wounded in an ensuing gun battle with officers after rallies commemorating the killing of Michael Brown turned violent. The commemorations of Brown, an unarmed black 18-year-old who was shot dead by a white policeman last year, had begun with a quiet march through the St. Louis suburb following a moment of silence. The scene changed dramatically after dark, with dozens of protesters blocking traffic and smashing store windows along West Florissant Avenue and chanting, "Shut it down," in the midst of a severe thunderstorm. Gunshots had erupted as police sought to disperse the demonstrators. Brown's death and a grand jury decision to spare Darren Wilson, the officer who shot him, from criminal charges, sparked a prolonged wave of demonstrations in Ferguson last year. It also sparked greater scrutiny of racial bias within the U.S. criminal justice system, giving rise to the Black Lives Matter movement. And on that story, we end our bulletin for today. Let me remind you of our headlines. At least 8 people killed in an open fire attack at a U.S. consulate building in Turkey, and another 3 during an attack on a police station. The Syrian army seizes a large number of weapons and internal documents from battles with the Islamic State. And 3 policemen wounded during a bomb explosion near a Cairo courthouse in Egypt. Those are your Monday headlines live on Future Television. I'm Yumna Nofal signing off. Have a good night.